Chapter 1. The First Lies. Emily Lou was 10 years old the first time she lied to her parents and got away with it. It was a chilly Thursday morning in early October. The kind that painted the Seattle sky in gray strokes and left dew on the windows. The kind of morning when Anna, her older sister, would usually braid Emily's hair before school, hand her a packed lunch with a handwritten note inside, and remind her to stay out of trouble. But that morning, Emily had other plans. She'd told her parents she had choir practice after school. In reality, she had no intention of singing. Instead, she and her friends were going to sneak off to the arcade across town, where the air always smelled like popcorn and old carpet, and the flashing lights offered an escape from everything boring and expected. Emily had gotten good at pretending. Her wide eyes and soft voice often shielded her from suspicion. When she told her mom, "Choir ends at 5, okay?" No one asked questions. No one except Anna. "You don't even like choir," Anna said, folding a piece of toast into her napkin and sliding it across the table. "You humofki." Emily shrugged. "So?" Anna narrowed her eyes. "So why are you suddenly so excited about it?" Emily flashed her best innocent smile. "Miss Crawford said I have potential." Anna didn't buy it, but she didn't say anything more. She just looked at Emily with a familiar sadness, an emotion Emily didn't yet know how to name. Later that day, Emily's luck ran out. The arcade was everything she'd imagined, buzzing with energy, filled with the clang of tokens and the mechanical laughter of digital monsters. She lost track of time in a whirlwind of racing games and soda. It was nearly 6 when she realized she'd missed the last school shuttle. And then the call came. Her dad's number lit up on her tiny flip phone. Panic surged. She didn't answer. By 7, her name was being called over the intercom at the arcade. A security guard walked her to the office where her sister, Anna, stood, hair unbrushed, eyes tired, clutching her oversized jacket over her school uniform. "You're in so much trouble," Anna muttered under her breath as they left the arcade. Emily bit her lip. "Are you gonna tell Mom and Dad?" Anna didn't answer. When they got home, Mr. and Mrs. Lou were waiting in the living room, the TV screen glowing silently in the background. Their mother's face was pale, worry etched deep into the lines of her brow. Their father, Mr. Lou, paced the floor like a ticking bomb. Anna stepped forward first. She missed the choir bus. "I found her waiting at the school gate," she said calmly. Emily blinked. Her heart thudded so hard she thought it might burst. Anna was lying. For her. Her parents sighed, both with visible relief. "Why didn't you call us, Emily?" their mom asked. "We were worried sick." I didn't want to get in trouble," Emily stammered, still unsure what part of the story to play. Her dad knelt to her level. "Next time, just call. We're not mad, okay? Just be more careful." Emily nodded slowly. Anna never looked her way. That night, Emily snuck into her sister's room. Anna was sitting on the floor, textbook open, eyes red. "Why'd you lie for me?" Emily asked. Anna didn't look up. "Because if Dad knew the truth, you'd be grounded until graduation." "But you lied. You got in trouble." Anna gave a small, bitter laugh. "I always get in trouble." Emily didn't know what to say. She thought back to the times Anna had taken the blame for broken dishes, late returns at the library, even a paint spill that ruined Mom's favorite curtains. Every time, Anna had been the shield. And Emily, the one being shielded, never truly understood why. "I'll make it up to you," Emily said. "No, you won't," Anna said flatly, but not cruelly. "Just tired. You'll forget this by next week." Emily didn't forget. But she also didn't stop lying. Years would pass, and Emily's mistakes would pile up like leaves on a windy street. And Anna, always quiet, always dependable, would sweep them away silently. Until one day, Anna wouldn't be there anymore. Chapter 2. The Missed Exam. It was Anna's senior year in high school, the year she was supposed to shine. She'd worked hard, late nights hunched over her biology textbook. Weekends spent tutoring younger students to help with tuition. She had a full ride in her sights, the prestigious Evergreen Scholars Program. One scholarship exam. One shot. and she was ready. Until Emily messed it up. It started with a phone call on a Wednesday morning. The kind of morning when everything seems too still, when you don't know something is wrong until it hits you in the face. Anna was already at school, reviewing practice questions outside the exam room when her phone buzzed. A number she didn't recognize. "Is this Anna Lu?" a voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "This is Officer Martinez with the Seattle Police Department. Your sister Emily has been brought in for shoplifting." Anna's heart stopped. She barely remembered running through the hallway, skipping class, ignoring the exam coordinator's raised eyebrows as she passed. She didn't have time to think about the test anymore. All she could hear was her father's voice in her head. "You're the oldest. You're responsible for her." The station was only a 10-minute ride away, but Anna felt every second drag like an eternity. She burst through the front doors, breathless and pale. There she was, Emily, sitting in the waiting room with smudged eyeliner and a defiant expression, her hoodie pulled over her head like a shield. "What did you do?" Anna whispered through gritted teeth. "It was just lip gloss," Emily mumbled. "And a stupid phone case. I didn't even walk out yet." Anna stared at her. "Why?" Emily shrugged, not meeting her eyes. "Dare. A dare." Anna felt something crack inside. Not just the anger, not even the worry, but something deeper. Something that told her she was losing her sister to a version of herself she couldn't recognize anymore. "Come with me," said Officer Martinez. "We need a parent or guardian to sign her out." Anna followed silently. Her hands trembled as she forged her mother's signature. She didn't ask permission. She didn't have time. They walked back to the car in silence. Emily slumped in the passenger seat, chewing on her lip. "You missed your exam, didn't you?" she asked. Anna gripped the wheel. "Yes." A beat of silence. "I'm sorry," Emily said. But it came out too soft, too small, like she didn't quite mean it. Anna didn't answer. That night, the house was unusually quiet. Their parents were working late shifts, unaware of the day's disaster. Anna had cooked dinner. Emily pushed food around her plate. Finally, Emily spoke. "You're not going to tell them?" Anna looked up, her face unreadable. "I should," she said. Emily's throat tightened. "But I won't." "Why?" "Because you're 17, Anna said flatly. "And if Dad found out, he might send you away to live with Aunt Linda in California. And I don't want to lose you, Emily." "You already did," Emily muttered. She didn't know why she said it. Maybe because she hated the way Anna looked at her now, not with love, but with disappointment. Anna's face changed just a flicker, but it was enough. "No," she said quietly. "You lost me." The next day, Anna returned to school. She apologized to the scholarship board. But the test couldn't be rescheduled. Rules were rules. The scholarship opportunity was gone. When her counselor asked why she missed the exam, Anna lied again. "Family emergency," she said. Like always. Weeks passed. The tension between the sisters turned into something colder than silence. Emily, ashamed and confused, buried herself in parties and friends who didn't ask too many questions. She hated how Anna's sacrifice clung to her like a shadow. And Anna just kept moving forward like she always did. Quiet. Composed. Holding everyone's world together while hers quietly unraveled. One night, Emily peeked into Anna's room. She was asleep at her desk, still in her school uniform, one hand resting on a half-finished essay. Her hair had come loose from its clip, and a glass of cold tea sat untouched nearby. Emily stared for a long time. "Why do you keep doing this?" she whispered into the dark. Anna didn't answer. But maybe she didn't need to. Back in her own room, Emily picked up her phone and texted a single line. "I'll never be like you. I'm sorry for that." She hit send, not expecting a reply. But one came. "You don't have to be like me. Just don't forget who you are." Emily cried herself to sleep that night. For the first time, not out of guilt, but out of love. Chapter 3. The Graduation Gown That Didn't Fit. Senior year flew by for Anna like pages in a forgotten novel. Despite missing the scholarship, She'd held her ground, kept her grades up, stayed on top of volunteer hours, and even worked a part-time job at the local library. Her counselor once called her the kind of girl who always makes it work. But at home, she was tired. Tired of fixing things. Tired of covering up lies. Tired of pretending that everything was normal when her relationship with Emily had become a cracked mirror, reflective only in broken pieces. Graduation was a week away. Their mother had gone into full celebration mode, sending out invitations to the extended family, ordering catering, and insisting Anna get a new dress for the ceremony. "She deserves it, Mrs. Lo said proudly, showing off the gown she'd ordered. First in the family. Emily hovered near the stairs, arms crossed. "You didn't let me pick mine when I graduated 8th grade. Mrs. Lo laughed. "Anna's graduating high school, not middle school. It's different." Anna didn't say anything. She just folded the gown and put it away in the closet. The truth was, it didn't fit. Too tight at the chest, too loose at the waist. She didn't say that either. Instead, she took the old gown her friend Lily offered, stitched the seams herself at night, and said nothing when her mother noticed her wearing a completely different one during the ceremony. Because that's what Anna did. The ceremony was held in the school gymnasium, the air thick with balloons, flowers, and flash photography. Names echoed through the loudspeakers, each followed by the dull roar of clapping and whistles. When Anna Lo walked across the stage, a subtle hush fell over the room. She looked radiant, graceful in her posture, collected in her smile. She accepted her diploma with the quiet dignity of someone who had lost something and still walked tall. In the front row, Emily sat next to their parents, chewing gum, legs jittering with nerves. She clapped, but her heart wasn't in rhythm. She felt out of place, like a lie sitting among truths. That night, the house was full of relatives, uncles, cousins, and old friends from church. Everyone toasted to Anna, to her future, to college, to becoming someone great. Emily stood in the kitchen, watching from behind a half-closed door, sipping soda from a chipped mug. "Why are you hiding?" asked a familiar voice. "Anna." Emily shrugged. "I'm not great at parties." Anna raised an eyebrow. "Since when?" Emily didn't answer. She just stared into her drink. "I should have told them," she muttered. "About the test. About the scholarship. About everything." Anna leaned against the doorframe. "It's over." "No, it's not." Anna sighed. "You think telling them would have made me feel better?" "It wouldn't. I didn't lie to protect myself, Em. I did it because that's what you needed at the time." Emily shook her head. "No. That's what you thought I needed." Anna hesitated. And for once, she said nothing. Later that night, long after the guests had gone and the dishes had been washed, Emily tiptoed into Anna's room. She found her sister packing a box, neatly folding clothes, labeling bags with college supplies. "University of Washington, huh?" Emily said softly. Anna smiled. "Yep. Close enough to home. Far enough to breathe." Emily sat on the edge of the bed. "You're leaving in August. Just 2 months. Feels like tomorrow." Anna paused her folding. "Is that a bad thing?" Emily didn't answer. Not with words. Instead, she pulled something out of her pocket, a wrinkled receipt from a bookstore downtown. "I used my paycheck," she mumbled. "Bought you a journal. Figured you might. I don't know. Wanna write stuff." Anna looked at it, brown leather cover, pages still crisp. She opened it to the first page. Written in crooked, unsure letters. "To my sister. The only reason I'm not completely lost." Anna didn't cry. She just hugged her. And that was enough. On the last night before Anna moved into the dorms, Emily helped her load boxes into the car. They didn't talk much. Just moved together like they'd finally found rhythm after a long, broken song. Before Anna got in the car, she turned to her. "Promise me one thing." Emily tilted her head. "What?" "Don't waste yourself." Emily scoffed. "That's vague." Anna smiled. "You'll understand someday." And with that, she left. Not forever, but enough to make the house feel a little emptier. And Emily, just a little more alone. Chapter 4. The Day She Wore White. 2 years had passed since Anna moved out. Emily was 21 now, living in a small apartment above a laundromat, scraping by with her marketing internship and occasional freelance gigs. Her clothes smelled faintly of detergent, and her fridge almost always held nothing but cold brew and leftover pizza. Still, for the first time in her life, she felt capable. Not good, not proud, but capable. Anna had stayed close. They texted, they called. Anna visited home for holidays, sometimes staying with Emily instead of their parents. The air between them had changed, no longer bitter, but filled with a tentative understanding. Like two people who had both bled and were trying not to reopen the wounds. Then came the call. Emily was in the middle of scheduling Instagram posts for a client when Anna's name flashed on her phone. Anna Lou, mobile. She answered immediately. Hey, I'm pregnant, Anna said. Emily froze. For a moment, all she could hear was the hum of the fridge behind her and the soft tapping of her heart against her ribs. Wait, seriously? Anna laughed nervously. Yeah, seriously. Are you okay? Is Daniel okay? Are you? I'm okay. We're okay. Just terrified and excited. Emily sank into her creaky couch. Wow. They talked for another hour. Names, ultrasounds, baby furniture. Emily offered to help decorate the nursery. She even joked about knitting a hat, though she didn't know how. When the call ended, Emily stared at the ceiling. Her big sister was going to be a mother. And for the first time in years, Emily felt like maybe things would be okay. Anna's wedding was small, just close friends and family in a quiet garden behind a Quaker chapel in Tacoma. Anna wore a simple white dress with sleeves of lace and a satin ribbon above her waist that barely hid the growing curve of her belly. Emily was the maid of honor. She didn't cry when Anna walked down the aisle. But she did when Anna took her hand afterward and whispered, I wouldn't be here without you. It was the first time Anna had said thank you for anything. And somehow it hurt more than any of the scoldings or silence they'd shared before. The months passed quickly. Emily visited often. Bringing casseroles she Googled 5 minutes before making. She learned to paint walls and assemble IKEA cribs. She rubbed Anna's feet during swollen evenings and massaged her lower back while they watched reruns of old sitcoms. Anna kept saying she was fine, but Emily could see it. The fatigue. The tension behind her smile. One evening, when Daniel was working late, Anna sat on the porch steps, staring at nothing. I'm scared, she admitted. Emily handed her a mug of peppermint tea. Of what? Of not being enough. Emily sat beside her. You're always enough. Anna gave her a look, half grateful, half sad. That's what I always said about you. On the night Anna went into labor, Emily was already asleep when Daniel called. She's bleeding, he said, voice tight. They're prepping for an emergency C-section. Emily grabbed her keys and drove like the world was falling apart. Because it was. The hospital was a blur of white coats and hushed urgency. By the time Emily reached the maternity ward, Daniel was pacing in front of the surgery doors, wild-eyed and shaking. I shouldn't have left work, he said over and over. I shouldn't have left her alone. Emily grabbed his hands. It's not your fault. She'll be okay. She has to be. But hours passed. And then a nurse walked out, eyes heavy with something that made Emily's knees buckle. The baby's fine, she said quietly. Emily barely breathed. But, Anna. They let her see her sister one last time. Anna lay still, her skin pale, hair damp against her forehead. The machines had stopped beeping. The silence screamed. Emily reached out and touched her hand. It was still warm. She wanted to see you, the nurse said softly. She kept asking. Emily nodded, too choked to speak. She leaned close and whispered the only words she could manage. I'll take care of him. Benji Lou was 6 pounds, 2 ounces. He didn't cry much, just stared up with dark, questioning eyes like he knew something the rest of the world didn't. Daniel tried to hold him but kept breaking down. Grief hit him in waves, drowning every attempt to be present. By the 3rd day, he hadn't eaten or slept. I can't, he whispered, pressing the child into Emily's arms. I can't raise him without her. Emily looked down at the baby. At Anna's nose. At the tiny, clenched fists. And without thinking, without any plan or certainty, she said, I can. That night, Emily walked out of the hospital not as a sister, not as an aunt, but as a mother. A broken one, but determined. Chapter 5. Good News and Quiet Fears. The hospital discharge paperwork crinkled in Emily's hand as she pushed the stroller out into the overcast Seattle morning. The clouds hung low, as if the sky itself mourned with her. Benji didn't cry. He hardly made a sound. Wrapped in a yellow swaddle printed with tiny ducks, he blinked up at her with wide, curious eyes. The kind of eyes that searched for something, maybe a voice he'd heard in the womb but would never hear again. Emily swallowed the lump in her throat. There was no room for tears now. The ride back to her apartment was silent, save for the gentle click of the stroller wheels on the sidewalk. She hadn't slept in 2 days. Her eyes burned, her limbs moved out of obligation, and her chest ached with something deeper than exhaustion. Benji didn't belong here. Not in this cramped studio above the laundromat with its peeling paint and one drafty window. But for now, it was all she had. Emily had no crib, no changing table, no bottles, just a makeshift bassinet made from an old laundry basket and a towel. She'd Googled how to take care of a newborn at 3 a.m. in the hospital cafeteria, scrolling with shaking hands and a spinning head. This wasn't supposed to be her life. She wasn't supposed to be someone's mother. And yet, here she was. That evening, Daniel called. He didn't ask for the baby. He didn't ask how Emily was doing. He just said, I'm going to stay with my parents for a while. In Oregon. Emily understood what he didn't say. I can't look at him. He looks too much like her. And she didn't blame him. She only said, I'll take care of him. I know, Daniel whispered. Anna trusted you. The line went dead. And Emily was alone again. The next morning, her mother arrived, suitcase in one hand and a box of soup in the other. I'm staying for a few days, she said simply. Mrs. Le didn't cry at the funeral. She didn't cry now. But the way she held Benji, cradled him close to her chest, and closed her eyes, spoke of a grief too deep for words. Emily made coffee. Burned toast. Fumbled with the bottle warmer. You need help, her mother said gently. You can't do this alone. I have to do it alone, Emily replied, eyes rimmed red. She asked me to. Her mother looked at her for a long time. She didn't ask you to suffer. Emily's voice broke. Then why did she leave? It was the only time Mrs. Le flinched. Over the following days, Emily learned things she never thought she would. How to burp a baby. How to change diapers in the dark. How to sing off-key lullabies while pacing the room at 3 a.m., praying he'd fall asleep before her arms gave out. She kept Anna's journal beside the crib, the one she had given her before college. Sometimes she read it out loud, letters Anna had written to herself, goals she'd set, memories she'd recorded in tiny, tidy handwriting. If I have a child someday, I want them to grow up kind. Emily clutched those words like scripture. 3 weeks later, her apartment manager left a notice on her door. No children allowed in single-tenant units. Emily stared at the paper, her chest tightening. She called her mom. I have to leave, she said, her voice shaking. They won't let me stay with him here. Mrs. Le didn't hesitate. Come home. But you're not alone, Emily. Come home. Returning to her childhood home felt like stepping into a museum where time had paused the day Anna left for college. Her high school trophies still sat on the mantel. Her bedroom smelled faintly of lavender and old textbooks. Emily stood at the doorway, holding Benji, unsure if she deserved to be there. Mrs. Le took one look at them and opened her arms. This is where you belong. That night, after Benji finally fell asleep in the crib Anna had once slept in, Emily curled up on the floor beside him. She stared at the ceiling, wondering what her sister would say if she were here. Would she be proud? Would she laugh at how unprepared Emily had been? Would she forgive her for all the years she took her love for granted? Emily whispered into the quiet room, voice trembling. I don't know how to do this, Anna. But somewhere, deep in the stillness, she imagined her sister's voice. You're already doing it. Chapter 6. The hospital night that changed everything. The sky cracked open that night. Seattle's rain came in sideways, lashing the windows with such fury it sounded like the world was weeping. Emily stood in the doorway of Anna's old bedroom, now transformed into a nursery, watching Benji toss and turn in his sleep. Something felt off. He hadn't finished his bottle that evening. He hadn't smiled at her like he usually did when she made that silly clicking noise with her tongue. His tiny brows were furrowed, and his breathing had been shallow for hours. Emily reached out and gently touched his forehead. Hot. Too hot. Her heart flipped. She grabbed the thermometer. The numbers blinked red, 102.8 degrees Fahrenheit. No. No. She didn't think. She grabbed the diaper bag, wrapped Benji in a blanket, and ran barefoot to the car. Her mother called after her, but Emily's ears were ringing with panic. The hospital was 30 minutes away. But in that moment, it felt like a continent. Emily's knuckles were white against the steering wheel as she drove, whispering broken prayers she wasn't sure she believed in. Please be okay. Please be okay. I don't know what I'm doing. Please don't leave me. Benji whimpered in the back seat. Every sound was a dagger. They were rushed through triage. Nurses swarmed. IVs were inserted. A doctor, a kind-eyed woman in green scrubs, explained it was a high fever, likely viral, but they needed to monitor him. Is he your son? The doctor asked. Emily opened her mouth. Stopped. Nodded. Yes, because that was the truth now. She sat beside his tiny hospital bed through the night. Her legs cramped. Her stomach growled. But she never moved. She watched the machines beep softly. Watched his little chest rise and fall. Watched the nurse refill the 4 bag with practiced grace. And she remembered. Anna's labor. The blood. The silence. And her own voice, raw in the hallway. I'll take care of him. But what did that even mean? Just feedings and lullabies and diaper changes? What about fear? What about when it feels like the world is ending? And all you have is a promise you're not sure you can keep? At 4:37 a.m., Benji opened his eyes. Emily was there instantly, leaning over the rails. He looked weak, but his lips curled slightly. That crooked little smirk. Anna's smirk. And just like that, the breath rushed back into Emily's lungs. By morning, the fever broke. The doctors smiled. The nurses laughed. The discharge papers were signed. But something in Emily had changed. That night had cracked her open. Not in fear, but in clarity. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't her doing a favor. This was her life. Her child. At home, her mother had left soup on the stove and a handwritten note by the crib. I knew you'd bring him home safe. Love, Mom. Emily warmed the soup and fed herself 1 spoonful at a time, still holding Benji in her arms. She didn't want to put him down. Not now. Maybe not ever. That evening, she opened Anna's journal again. There was a loose photograph inside, one Emily hadn't noticed before. It was from years ago. A summer day. Emily, maybe 12, in a too large helmet, riding a bicycle while Anna ran behind her, arms outstretched in case she fell. On the back, Anna had scribbled something in blue pen. You're braver than you know. You just don't believe it yet. Emily stared at the words until they blurred. Later, she took out a new notebook, opened the first page, and wrote, Dear Anna, tonight I almost lost him. But I didn't. And I know now. This isn't just something I'm doing for you. This is something I'm doing for me. The next morning, Emily called Daniel. He hadn't answered her messages in weeks. But this time, he picked up. His voice was quiet. Is he okay? Emily nodded, even though he couldn't see. Yes, we're okay. There was silence. Then, thank you. Emily hesitated. Do you want to see him? Another pause. I'm not ready, Daniel admitted. I don't know how to be around him without her. Emily closed her eyes. She understood. You take your time, she said gently. He'll still be here. After the call ended, she kissed Benji's forehead and whispered, You're still here. I'm still here. That's enough for today. Chapter 7. A funeral without tears. The funeral was held 2 weeks after Anna's passing. The church on Fifth Avenue in Seattle was the same one where Anna had once taught Sunday school, back when life was simpler and hope didn't feel like a memory. Its stained glass windows cast fractured light onto the pews, making everything shimmer like something holy was hovering just beyond reach. Emily didn't wear black. She wore Anna's favorite cardigan, a faded lavender sweater with a loose thread on the left sleeve. The one Anna had worn the night she told her she was pregnant. The night they'd laughed about baby names over ice cream and music from the early 2000s. She wanted to feel her sister close. Benji slept against her chest in a soft sling, his tiny breath warm on her collarbone. Daniel sat 3 pews away, hunched over, his face pale, a shell of the man who used to make Anna's eyes light up. He hadn't spoken a word to anyone. Not even when the priest asked if he wanted to say something. He only stared at the urn that held Anna's ashes, as if daring it to speak for him. Emily hadn't planned to speak either. But when the priest called for anyone who wanted to share a memory, and the silence grew unbearable, she stood. Her knees wobbled. Her mouth felt dry. But she stood anyway, and said, "I was the reason Anna lied so much." A few heads turned. I was always the mess. The girl who made bad choices, the one who skipped school, who stole lipstick and cheated on tests. And Anna, she covered for me. Every single time. Her voice cracked. She gave up things for me. Opportunities. Sleep. Friends. Even a scholarship. She never threw it in my face. She never asked for anything back. A pause. She just kept loving me. Emily looked down at Benji. And now she's given me one more thing. The hardest thing. The most beautiful thing. She closed her eyes for a moment. I'm not going to pretend Anna was a saint. She got tired. She got quiet. Sometimes I think I broke her heart more than once. But she kept showing up. That's who she was. Another pause. I can't bring her back. But I can raise her son. And maybe if I do that with enough love, maybe that's how I'll say thank you. She stepped down without waiting for applause. No one clapped. That would have felt wrong. But someone cried. Daniel. A soft, broken sound. And Emily didn't hate him for it. After the service, people lingered awkwardly in the church garden. Muffins sat untouched on paper plates. Conversations hushed into nothingness. Death had a way of making everyone afraid of the sound of their own voice. Emily held Benji tighter. Mrs. Lu stood beside her, a stiff shadow in a black coat. She hadn't said a word since the eulogy. She just watched people drift away like leaves on water. You didn't cry. Emily said softly, not as judgment but as observation. Her mother didn't look at her. I haven't cried since the night she was born. Emily blinked. What? I was so afraid she'd die then. The cord was around her neck. She didn't cry for 30 seconds. 30 seconds, Emily. It felt like a lifetime. Mrs. Lee's voice trembled. When she finally screamed, I made a vow. I'd never take her for granted. And I didn't. But I did take you for granted. Emily swallowed. I wasn't easy to love. Mrs. Loy turned to her then, eyes tired and glistening. No. But you're still here. And you're doing what I never had the strength to do. What's that? Raise a child on your own. That night, after they returned home, Emily undressed in silence. Benji stirred in his crib, but didn't wake. The lavender cardigan smelled like hospital soap and something older, something warm, like memory. She folded it gently and placed it inside the drawer labeled Anna's Things, right beside the baby journal Anna never had time to fill. Then, she lit the small vanilla candle on the nightstand. A soft glow filled the room. She opened her notebook. Dear Anna, I said goodbye to you today, but it didn't feel like goodbye. You're everywhere in him, in the songs you liked, in the way I've started talking to myself when I'm tired. I want to believe I can do this. I want to believe I can be the kind of mother you would have been. Not perfect, but present. Always present. She closed the journal and blew out the candle. The flame vanished, but the warmth lingered. Chapter 8, From Sister to Mother. 3 months had passed since the funeral. Autumn had arrived in Seattle. The leaves outside the Lu family home blazed red and gold, falling onto the front steps like confetti from a celebration no one planned. Inside, Emily moved through her days like a woman with two lives, one rooted in grief, the other in quiet resilience. She no longer cried when she folded baby clothes. She no longer panicked when Benji's temperature rose half a degree. She no longer whispered apologies to Anna every night. Instead, she whispered stories. Soft, simple ones. About a kind woman who loved rainstorms and lavender tea, who played piano even though she wasn't very good, and who once wrote a letter that changed someone's life. Benji listened. He didn't understand yet, but Emily believed he would. That morning, Benji took his first steps. It happened so suddenly. One moment he was crawling toward his plastic truck, and the next he stood, wobbled, and lunged forward 2 whole steps before collapsing into her arms. Emily froze, then burst into laughter and tears all at once, holding him tightly while he giggled, unaware of the milestone he had just crossed. "You did it," she whispered into his hair. "You brave, wild little thing." She kissed his cheek. And in that moment, she didn't feel like a girl pretending to be someone's mother. She was his mother. Fully. Truly. Not because of biology, but because of moments like this. Moments earned. Moments held. That evening, she called Daniel. This time, he answered on the first ring. "Hi," he said, voice tentative. He walked, she said immediately. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. "Really?" 2 steps. Wobbly. But they counted. She heard a quiet, broken laugh on the other end. "I wish I'd seen it." "You still can," Emily said gently. "You can see all the steps that come next." Daniel didn't respond right away, but eventually he asked, "Can I come by next week?" Emily smiled through tears. "We'd like that." The next day, Emily found herself at the local community center. She had heard about a part-time opening for an administrative assistant, flexible hours, baby-friendly space, and just enough income to help her feel like herself again. The interviewer, a middle-aged woman with soft curls and warm eyes, looked over her application. "You were studying marketing?" Emily nodded. "Graduated, but I took time off when my sister passed." "And now you're raising her son?" "Yes," she said simply. The woman looked up. "That's a lot." "It is. Are you sure you're ready to be back at work?" Emily looked toward the small window, where Benji sat in the waiting area with a volunteer, stacking blocks with intense concentration. "I'm not sure of a lot of things," she admitted, "but I know I want to build something again. For him. For me." The woman smiled. "You're hired." That night, Emily sat on the porch, sipping tea as the sky turned indigo. Mrs. Le joined her, a blanket draped over her shoulders. "Do you ever feel guilty?" Emily asked suddenly. Her mother turned. "About Anna?" Emily nodded. "Every day," her mother whispered. "And not just for what I did. For what I didn't do." She paused. "But guilt is heavy. Love is lighter. You can't carry both forever." Emily let those words settle. She hadn't forgiven herself fully. Not yet. But she was learning to live beside the guilt instead of under it. Later, she tucked Benji into bed and sat by his crib, humming a lullaby she barely remembered from childhood. His little hand reached through the bars and touched her arm. "Mama," he said sleepily. Emily froze. Her breath caught. Not Emmy. Not Auntie. But Mama. She hadn't told him to call her that. No one had. It just came. And she knew. She was no longer living in Anna's shadow. She was living in her own light. She kissed his fingers and whispered, "I'll never replace her." A pause. "But I'll love you like she would have." Another pause. "No, I'll love you like I do." The wind rustled through the trees outside, scattering golden leaves across the yard. And somewhere in the quiet house, a new chapter began. Not as a sister, not as a shadow, but as something full and real and healing. A mother. At last. Chapter 9. The First Sleepless Night. The community center job turned out to be both everything and nothing Emily expected. On paper, it was simple: scheduling rooms, updating social media, answering calls, refilling the printer paper. But in reality, it was something else entirely. It was learning how to juggle work while calming a teething baby. It was sharing coffee with other single moms in the break room. It was laughing again, slowly, cautiously. It was healing. Benji had his own spot in the nursery 2 doors down from Emily's desk, a brightly lit room filled with stuffed animals, worn books, and one exceptionally patient childcare worker named Clara. Clara was in her 50s, with warm brown skin and a laugh that vibrated through the walls. "Your boy," she told Emily on the second day, "has the biggest eyes I've ever seen. Always watching. Always listening." Emily smiled. "He gets that from his mom." Clara tilted her head. "You?" Emily hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, me." But that night, back at home, the house was far from peaceful. Benji screamed. And screamed. And screamed. Emily checked his diaper. Gave him teething gel. Sang lullabies. Danced with him in her arms. Nothing worked. His tiny fists beat against her chest. His body burned with restlessness. The clock on the wall read 2:14 a.m. Emily sank to the floor, rocking him, tears stinging her eyes. She whispered, "Please, baby. Just sleep. Please." He didn't. Her mother peeked into the room sometime after 3 o'clock. "Want me to take him for a bit?" she asked, her voice groggy. Emily looked up, defeated. "Mrs." Lo lifted Benji into her arms with a practiced grace and hummed something ancient, something Vietnamese that Emily hadn't heard in years. Benji calmed. Of course he did. And Emily felt like a failure. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, hands still trembling from exhaustion. "I'm not cut out for this," she thought. "I'm doing this wrong. Anna would have been better." The thoughts came like waves, each crueler than the last. But then, she remembered what Clara had said. Always watching. Always listening. Benji didn't just need someone perfect. He needed someone present. And Emily was still here. The next morning, she made pancakes shaped like stars. Benji smashed them gleefully between his fingers. "More," he chirped. Emily fed him bite by bite, her eyes bleary, her smile crooked. They'd survived the first truly sleepless night. That had to count for something. Later that day, while sorting the mail, Emily found an envelope addressed to her in Anna's handwriting. Her breath caught. She tore it open with shaking fingers. Inside was a card. "To be opened on your 25th birthday." The note on the front read, "She was 25 today." Emily had forgotten. She opened the card. "Dear Emily, if you're reading this, it means I'm either being a dramatic older sister or I'm not around anymore. I hope it's the first. I just wanted to tell you that I've never stopped believing in you. Not when you failed that math test. Not when you dyed your hair blue. Not even when you made me lie to Mom about that party you weren't supposed to go to. You are more than your mistakes. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are becoming. And if I'm not there to say it, happy birthday. You've always been more than you think you are. Love, Anna." Emily pressed the card to her heart and wept. Not just for Anna, but for the girl she used to be, and the woman she was finally becoming. That night, she tucked Benji into bed. She kissed his forehead, and she whispered, "Your mom loved you more than the sky, but I love you just as big." Benji blinked sleepily. "Love you too." 2 years old and already full of grace. Emily stepped outside onto the porch with a cup of tea. The stars blinked through the fog. She didn't feel whole yet. Not completely. But for the first time, she felt real. Present. Capable. The first year of motherhood had taken everything from her. But in return, it had given her something quietly miraculous. Redemption. Not just from her past, but from the version of herself she thought she'd never outgrow. Chapter 10. The Quiet Things That Last. The days blurred together in the way only motherhood could manage. Breakfast, diaper change. Playtime, work, nap, more diapers, dinner, bath, bedtime stories. Some days Emily didn't brush her hair. Other days she forgot whether she'd eaten. But Benji thrived. He laughed more, spoke in longer sentences, and clung to her like she was his anchor to the world. 3 months after her 25th birthday, Emily sat across from the director of the community center. "You've been doing excellent work," the director said, tapping her fingers on a folder. "We'd like to offer you a full-time position. Program coordinator. Benefits, flexible hours. And you'd lead our new parenting through loss support group." Emily blinked. Program coordinator. Benefits. Leadership. Support group for people like her. "Why me?" she asked, voice unsure. The director smiled. "Because when you walk into a room, Emily, people feel seen. Not because you've had a perfect life, but because you're still standing." Emily didn't cry until she got home. Then she held Benji and whispered, "We're not just surviving anymore, baby. We're building." The support group met every Wednesday evening in the community center's upstairs room, where the chairs were mismatched and the tea always tasted a little stale. But that room held stories, heavy ones, beautiful ones. A widowed father who didn't know how to braid his daughter's hair. A mother who lost her child and carried his name on a bracelet she never took off. A teenage girl raising her baby brother after their parents' accident. And Emily. She didn't try to lead with expertise. She led with honesty. "I didn't know how to love myself until someone gave me a child to protect," she said once. "And sometimes that child saved me more than I saved him." Heads nodded. Tears came. And healing began. Daniel came around slowly. At first, he would drop off toys or books. Sometimes money. He still didn't hold Benji long. His hands seemed to shake whenever he tried, but he stayed a little longer each time. One Saturday, he showed up at the door with a tiny pair of baseball cleats. Emily raised an eyebrow. "He's 3. He barely knows which direction to run." Daniel chuckled. "Then we'll learn together." Benji looked up at him. "You stay." Daniel bent down. "If that's okay with you." Emily watched her son, his eyes serious, his hands unsure. Then Benji nodded. "Okay." And Daniel stayed for dinner. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Not shared custody. Not co-parenting in the traditional sense, but presence. Consistency. Softness where once there had only been silence. One evening after the group meeting, Clara walked Emily to her car. "You know," Clara said, "I've seen a lot of women walk through this building. Some of them break. Some bend. Some just leave." Emily waited. "But you," Clara said. "You built a home out of the rubble." Emily smiled, but her throat tightened. "I still feel like I'm just figuring it out." "That's the secret, baby," Clara said with a grin. "We all are." Later that night, Emily found herself back at the bookshelf where Anna's journals still sat. She hadn't opened it in months. But tonight, something pulled her to it. She flipped to a page in the middle. No heading. No date. Just one sentence written in blue ink. "I hope if I'm ever gone, Emily becomes the kind of woman who sees herself the way I've always seen her." Emily closed the book and hugged it to her chest. And for the first time, she didn't feel like she was chasing her sister's shadow. She felt like she was walking beside her. Benji turned 4 that spring. They had a small party at the park, balloons, a homemade cake. Bubbles everywhere. He ran across the grass in a superhero cape, yelling, "I'm flying," while Emily laughed until her sides hurt. Daniel handed her a plate of watermelon slices and sat beside her. "You ever think she's watching this?" he asked. Emily didn't look away from Benji. "I don't think she's watching," she said quietly. "I think she's in it." That night, Emily tucked Benji into bed, brushed the crumbs off his cheek, and whispered their new nightly ritual. "Who loves you?" Benji grinned sleepily. "You do. And who else?" He tapped his chest. "Mama Anna. In here." Emily nodded. "That's right." He closed his eyes, drifting off. And Emily sat there a moment longer, memorizing his face. The roundness of his cheeks. The way his lashes fluttered. The rise and fall of his breathing. All the quiet things that lasted. Later, in her journal, she wrote, "Dear Anna, today he flew. And I think, somehow, I did too." Chapter 11. The day he called me Mom. It happened on a Tuesday. The kind of quiet Tuesday that had no plans, no storms, no tears, just sunshine streaking through the curtains and the smell of toast slightly burnt. Benji was sitting at the kitchen table with a coloring book, his tongue poking out as he tried to stay within the lines of a crooked dragon. Emily stood at the sink, elbow deep in dish soap, humming a half-remembered song Anna used to play in the car. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun. Her sweatshirt was inside out. But her heart felt still and full. That's when it happened. Benji looked up and said, without hesitation, "Mom, where's my blue crayon?" Just like that. No pause. No uncertainty. No, Auntie Emily. Just Mom. Emily froze. Her hands trembled, suds dripping from her fingers. She turned slowly, heart thumping loud in her chest. Benji had already gone back to coloring, unaware of the world he had just shifted. She walked over, knelt beside him. "Benji," she whispered, her voice barely holding steady. "What did you just call me?" He looked up, blinking. "Mom." He said it like it had always been true. And maybe, in his world, it had. Later that night, Emily stared at the ceiling while rain gently tapped the window pane. Her mother, Mrs. Lu, knocked once before slipping into the room. She held 2 mugs of chamomile tea and a familiar quietness that Emily had come to love. "He called me Mom today," Emily said softly. Her mother sat on the bed beside her. "I thought he already did sometimes." "Yeah, but today it was real. Unforced. Natural." She took a slow sip of tea, and all I could think about was Anna. Her mother nodded, hands clasped tightly around the mug. "I did too." They sat in silence for a while, the air between them thick with shared ache. "He doesn't remember her," Emily said after a while. "Not really." "No, but he remembers being loved. That's more than most children get." Emily stared at her mother. "You think Anna would be proud of me?" Mrs. La didn't even pause. "She'd be in awe of you." The next day, Daniel called. He had started coming by more regularly, dropping off books, helping with errands, even reading bedtime stories when Benji asked for the funny version of Goodnight Moon that only he could tell. "I've been thinking," he said cautiously, "about legal stuff." Emily's stomach tightened. "What kind of legal stuff?" "Adoption. Custody. Rights." "I don't want to take anything away from you, Emily. You're his mom. You always will be. But maybe there's a way we can give that structure, so it's not all on your shoulders anymore." Emily didn't respond right away. She'd thought about it too. There were nights she feared something happening to her. What if she got sick? What if the state came with paperwork and cold eyes and didn't see their little world for what it was? "He still sleeps with the photo of her," Emily said, almost as if to remind them both who Benji belonged to. "I know," Daniel said softly. "But he belongs to us now, doesn't he?" She closed her eyes. Yes, he did. They met with a lawyer 2 weeks later. It wasn't dramatic. There were no fights, no tension, just signatures, acknowledgments, and a shared understanding. Benji would stay with Emily. Always. But Daniel would have shared legal guardianship, permission to take him to school, to the doctor, to be part of decisions that shaped his life. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And it was built on love. That weekend, the 3 of them visited the lake. Benji wore a life vest 3 sizes too big and shrieked every time a duck swam too close. Emily laughed so hard her sides hurt. Daniel tried and failed to keep the picnic blanket from blowing away. It was simple, uneventful, and unforgettable. On the way home, Benji fell asleep in the back seat, drooling on a superhero blanket. Emily looked at Daniel, who was humming quietly to the radio. "Do you think he'll remember this?" Daniel nodded without looking at her. "He'll remember the feeling." That night, Emily lit a candle and opened her journal. "Dear Anna, he called me Mom, and I didn't correct him. I didn't hand your name back to him like a relic, because I think you gave it to me on purpose. Not to replace you, but to carry what you started. He knows he's loved. He knows he's safe. And when he laughs now, I hear you in it. Thank you for trusting me, even when I hadn't learned how to trust myself." She closed the journal, blew out the candle, and walked down the hall. Benji stirred in his sleep, mumbling nonsense words and kicking off his blanket. Emily tucked him back in, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "I'm right here, baby. Always." Chapter 12. The birthday they forgot was hers. Emily didn't expect anyone to remember her birthday. 30 was a milestone for most people: balloons, group dinners, flowers at the office. But for Emily, it was just another Wednesday. She woke up early, packed Benji's lunch, ironed his favorite dinosaur t-shirt, and drove him to school with a travel mug full of lukewarm coffee. At the stoplight near the library, Benji asked, "How old are you, Mommy?" Emily laughed. "Rude question, mister." He giggled, then said, "Are you older than dinosaurs?" She gasped theatrically. "Yes. In fact, I babysat one named Terry. A pterodactyl." Benji's shriek of laughter filled the car. And just like that, the moment passed. Work was uneventful. 2 meetings. 1 printer jam. A spilled cup of tea. The receptionist, Melissa, waved goodbye with a yawn and a "see you tomorrow," unaware of the candles Emily wouldn't be blowing out that night. She didn't mind. Or, at least, she told herself she didn't. After all, she had Benji. At home, she microwaved leftover lasagna and scrolled aimlessly through photos on her phone while Benji built a spaceship out of cereal boxes. She paused at a photo of her and Anna, taken years ago at a roller rink. Anna had skates on, arms outstretched like she was flying. Emily was mid-fall behind her, face scrunched in panic. They had laughed so hard that night. Emily zoomed in on Anna's face and whispered, "Do you know I made it here?" Benji interrupted her thoughts by toddling over, proudly holding up his cardboard creation. "Wanna fly with me, Mom?" She smiled and opened her arms. Always. Later, after he fell asleep, she wandered into the kitchen to wash dishes and found a small envelope taped to the fridge. Her heart jumped. In crooked handwriting that could only belong to Benji, it read, "Open on the day when your hair gets more gray." She grinned and peeled it off carefully. Inside was a card made of construction paper, glitter glue, and 4 stickers of space cats. Inside, it said, "Dear Mom, happy birthday. I asked Grandma, but she forgot. I asked Daniel, but he said it was next week. He was wrong. So I made this for you. Thank you for lunch and hugs and letting me sleep in your bed when the thunder is scary. You're better than a dinosaur. Love, Benji. P.S. I didn't forget your cake. I asked the microwave to make one, but it didn't work." Emily laughed so hard she cried. And when the tears finally stopped, she whispered, "This is enough." The next morning, her mother stood in the doorway, holding a plastic bag of groceries and a sheepish look. "I forgot," she said. Emily raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Your birthday." Emily chuckled. "It's okay." "No, it's not," her mother insisted. "You always remembered Anna's. Even after she passed, you still lit a candle." "I should have." Emily crossed the room and hugged her tightly. "I'm not angry," she said. "Because honestly, yesterday was beautiful." Her mother pulled back and studied her. "You look so much like her now." Emily smiled. "I hope I live different, though. I hope I live more." That evening, Daniel came by. He carried a small white box. "Peace offering," he said, placing it on the table. "It's not dinosaur-shaped, but Benji picked the sprinkles." Inside was a simple vanilla cupcake with blue frosting and 3 candles shaped like question marks. "I told him I didn't know your age," Daniel grinned. Emily rolled her eyes. "You're both terrible at dates." "Maybe," he said. "But we're great at showing up." She looked at the cupcake, then at the people sitting around her. And for the first time on her birthday, she didn't wish for anything else. Later that night, she wrote in her journal, "Dear Anna, I turned 30 yesterday. You never made it here. But I carried you with me. Your laugh, your strength, your stubborn faith in me. It turns out, life didn't forget me. It just waited until I was ready to love it back." Outside, the stars blinked softly. Benji stirred in his sleep. And Emily, no longer the girl hiding behind her sister's shadow, blew out 3 invisible candles and made a wish. Not for more, but for more of this. Chapter 13. When he drew our family. It started with crayons. Emily always kept a small plastic bin of them on the kitchen counter, between the napkin holder and the fruit bowl, ready for rainy days, homework, or Benji's wild imagination. That morning, she was running late for work, struggling to find her keys under a pile of mail when Benji tugged her sleeve. "Mom," he said, holding up a sheet of construction paper. "Look what I made for school." She glanced down, and her world stopped. It was a drawing, one of those messy, bright, beautiful ones only a child could create. Stick figures with triangle dresses and lopsided smiles. A yellow sun in the corner. A floating house that defied gravity. But it was the caption at the top, scrawled in blue marker, that knocked the breath out of her. My family. There were 3 figures. One tall woman with black hair and a purple dress labeled Mom. One little boy with a big smile, me. And next to them, another woman, smaller, with angel wings drawn in orange and a halo above her head, my other mom. She's in the sky. Emily felt her throat close. "Did someone help you with this?" she whispered, kneeling down. Benji shook his head. "Nope. I just wanted everyone to know I have 2 moms." "You do?" He nodded, matter of fact. "You take care of me. She watches me fly." Emily laughed softly, one of those laughs that hurts because it pulls from somewhere buried and still raw. "Baby, do you miss her?" Benji thought for a second, then shrugged. "Not like sad miss. Just like I know she's part of me." Emily pulled him into a hug, her eyes stinging. "She'd be so proud of you." Benji beamed. "You say that every time." "Because it's always true." That night, after dinner and bath time and a rerun of Bluey, Emily tucked Benji into bed and placed his drawing on the nightstand beside his favorite book. He reached out and touched her face gently. "Are you gonna cry again?" She smiled through tears. "Not today." "Okay," he said, content. "Good night, Mom." "Good night, sweetheart." She turned off the light and stood at the door for a long while, staring back at him, arms around his stuffed dinosaur, chest rising and falling in soft rhythm. Down the hall, Emily passed Anna's photo in the hallway, the same one that had hung there since college. She stopped, touched the corner of the frame. "I think he really knows who you are," she whispered. And maybe that was the biggest miracle of all. At the community center the next day, Emily brought the drawing with her. During the parenting group session, someone mentioned how hard it was to talk about loss with their children. The room grew quiet, heavy with unspoken guilt and doubt. Emily looked down at Benji's drawing in her lap. Then she stood. "I used to think I had to erase her," she said, "to protect him. Like her memory might make him feel something too big, too painful." She paused, voice steady. "But kids, they don't fear love the way we do. Even the kind that hurts. They find space for it." She held up the picture. "And sometimes, they show us how." The group clapped gently, respectfully. A few cried. And Emily, for the first time, didn't feel like the broken girl pretending to lead. She felt like someone who had earned her voice. That evening, she found Benji sitting at the window, coloring again. This time he was drawing a rocket ship. "Where's this one going?" she asked. He grinned. "To the sky." "To visit your other mom?" He nodded. "But don't worry. I'll come back." Emily ruffled his hair. "I know you will." He looked up, serious. "But you don't have to come. 'Cause you're here already." And somehow, in his little boy logic, that made perfect sense. That night, Emily lit a candle near the window and opened her journal. "Dear Anna, he drew you with wings today. Not because I told him. Because he felt it. He's growing into this wide, weird, beautiful world. And somehow, he carries you in it like sunlight in his chest. I never knew memory could live in someone who never really knew you. But here he is, proof that love travels across time. Across silence. Across everything." Chapter 14. The first time I said yes. It started with coffee. A paper cup, lukewarm and a little too bitter, placed quietly on her desk one Friday morning. Emily blinked at it. Then at the note tucked beneath the cardboard sleeve. "You looked tired yesterday." D. She turned toward the hallway and caught Daniel slipping into the playroom where Benji was building an elaborate tower of blocks with another boy. His sleeves were rolled up, tie loose. Face flushed with a mixture of concentration and affection. Emily stared at the coffee, then smiled. Daniel had become part of the rhythm without either of them naming it. He showed up at school pickup. He came to birthdays. He fixed the dripping faucet. He laughed during dinner and always helped with the dishes, even when Emily told him not to. He never asked for anything, never tried to reclaim what he'd lost. He simply showed up, over and over again, like someone building something quietly, brick by brick, heart by heart. That evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, Daniel knocked gently on the door of Emily's kitchen. I made reservations. Emily raised an eyebrow. At that Italian place downtown. She leaned against the doorframe. You mean the one where you spilled marinara all over your lap on your first date with Anna? He chuckled. That one. They remodeled. I promise to keep my lap clean this time. Emily hesitated. Daniel straightened, nervous. It's not a date unless you want it to be. Just two people who've survived a lot, maybe sharing a meal. She glanced toward the living room, where Benji was curled up watching cartoons, his head resting against a dinosaur pillow. Then she looked at Daniel, at the man who had slowly, painfully, and patiently learned to live with loss and still chose love. And for the first time in a long time, Emily said, yes. The restaurant was warm and candlelit, filled with soft music and the scent of roasted garlic and rosemary. Emily wore a navy dress she hadn't touched in years. Daniel had shaved, but his hair still curled stubbornly at the edges. They talked. Not about grief. Not about Benji. Just about themselves. Favorite childhood movies. Worst summer jobs. Her weird obsession with kiwi fruit. His failed attempt to write a novel in college. And when dessert arrived, tiramisu with extra cocoa, Daniel looked at her and said, You're different now. Emily blinked. Is that a good thing? It's a beautiful thing, he replied. You used to live like the world owed you an apology. Now you live like you're making peace with it. She smiled, a little stunned. I think I'm starting to believe I deserve peace. You do. He walked her to her door that night. And as they stood there under the porch light, he didn't lean in. He didn't rush. He just looked at her like she was something fragile and brave all at once. I'm not here to replace her, he said softly. I know what she meant to you. Emily's voice was steady. She still means the world to me. He nodded. But you. He stopped. Then started again. You've built something without her. You don't owe her your loneliness. Emily's breath caught. And slowly, she reached out and took his hand. Not as an answer, but as a beginning. Inside, after he left, Emily stood in front of the mirror and studied her reflection. There were new lines around her eyes. A faint scar on her chin from when Benji knocked her into the toy shelf last year. A streak of gray hiding in her dark hair. But she looked alive. Not like a ghost of Anna's memory. Not like a woman weighed down by guilt. But like someone who had learned to say yes to the present. Even when it was uncertain. Even when it was bittersweet. That night, she wrote in her journal. Dear Anna, I said yes today. To dinner. To joy. To the chance that healing can look like something more than survival. I didn't betray you. I carried you with me into every laugh. Into every bite of tiramisu. Into the space beside me that used to feel like a wound. But tonight felt like hope. You were my first home. But you're not the only one I'm allowed to build. Benji stirred in the next room. Emily rose from her desk and padded down the hallway, stepping into his room as he mumbled through a dream. She tucked the blanket back around him, smoothing his hair. His eyes fluttered open briefly. You were smiling, he mumbled. I was. Yeah, he yawned. That's good. Then he rolled over and drifted off again. Emily watched him breathe and whispered, I think you were right. Chapter 15. The letter she never got to read. Spring arrived gently that year. Seattle bloomed in quiet ways, cherry blossoms scattered on sidewalks like confetti from the sky, windows opened just enough to let laughter spill through. Life had found its rhythm again. Steady and soft. So had Emily. Mornings with Benji had become their sanctuary: pancakes on Tuesdays, dinosaur socks on Fridays, and dance parties in the kitchen any day the sun dared to shine. Daniel had become more than presents. He had become home too. They didn't rush anything. There were no declarations, no elaborate plans. But on Thursday nights, he stayed after dinner. On Saturdays, they went to the farmer's market as a family. And sometimes, when Benji was asleep, Emily leaned into his shoulder and allowed herself to rest. Not from exhaustion, but from fear. One April afternoon, while organizing old boxes from the attic, Emily found a sealed envelope tucked inside the back of Anna's high school scrapbook. It was addressed to her, in familiar, looping handwriting. Emily, for when you're older. Maybe wiser. Definitely still loud. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside, 3 folded pages. Hey, dummy. If you're reading this, it means I finally got around to writing the letter I always meant to. No, I'm not dying. At least, I better not be. That'd be a really bad coincidence. But I guess I always knew. I might not get to say everything I wanted to. So here it goes. First, yes, I was always mad at you for taking my clothes. Especially the green hoodie. You still owe me one. Second, you were never as lost as you thought you were. You just refused to admit how deeply you felt things. You covered it up with jokes and rebellion and chaos. But I always knew underneath all that, you had the softest heart. Third, and this is the important part, I never wanted you to be me. I wanted you to be you. Fully. Loudly. Completely. And if something ever happens and I'm not there, I need you to promise me 2 things. 1, take care of yourself the way I tried to take care of you. 2, love someone with your whole heart, even if it terrifies you. Bonus, tell Mom I forgive her. She was never perfect, but she loved us in the ways she knew how. Maybe she just ran out of ways to show it. I hope by now you've done something crazy and beautiful with your life. I hope you've stopped punishing yourself. I hope you've learned that forgiveness isn't something you get, it's something you grow into. You were never my burden, Emily. You were my favorite person. Love. Anna. Emily didn't cry right away. She read the letter once. Then again. And again. And then she laughed, a watery, surprised kind of laugh that cracked something open deep in her chest. She folded the letter carefully and placed it inside her journal, next to her own writing. Then she went to find Benji. He was in the backyard, digging an ocean with a plastic shovel. Hey, she called. Want to help me plant something? He looked up, intrigued. Like a tree. No, she said. Like a beginning. They spent the rest of the afternoon planting lavender along the fence, Anna's favorite. Benji asked 100 questions about soil and roots and worms. Emily answered most of them with a smile, sometimes inventing answers when she didn't know the truth. Later, she tucked him into bed and told him about Anna again, not just her name, but the way she laughed when she was nervous, the way she always hummed when folding laundry, the way she once chased a goose at the zoo because it bit her granola bar. Benji giggled, eyes wide. She sounds awesome. She was, Emily said softly. She still is. He hugged her tight, small arms wrapping around her neck. I'm glad you're my mom. Emily kissed his forehead. Me too. That night, she lit one more candle. This one for herself. And wrote, Dear Anna, I found your letter. You were wrong about one thing. You didn't have to be here for me to hear you. You've always been in the way I parent. In the way I pause before yelling. In the way I choose love, even when it's hard. You were never gone, not really. And now, I think I'm ready to live the rest of the story without asking who I'd be if you were still here. I am who I am because you were. The lavender outside swayed in the wind. Inside, Benji dreamed of oceans. And Emily slept without guilt for the first time in years. Chapter 16. A New Beginning. The sunlight filtered softly through the curtains, casting warm golden rays onto the bedroom wall where a family photo hung, a smiling Emily, Daniel, and Benji. Arms wrapped around each other. Emily stretched and smiled, feeling a deep calm she hadn't known for years. The years of grief, sacrifice, and uncertainty had forged something new, something strong and tender all at once. Downstairs, Benji was practicing the first notes of his piano recital, humming tunelessly but with determination. Daniel brewed coffee in the kitchen, glancing over his shoulder with a smile when Emily passed by. "Ready for the big day?" he asked. Emily nodded, heartful. "Yes, for all of us." They had built a life, imperfect, beautiful, and real. As she watched Daniel and Benji together, Emily realized healing was not a destination, but a journey, a light that stayed on, even in the darkest nights. And now, their story was just beginning. Chapter 17. The Gift of Forgiveness. The afternoon sun was warm but gentle as Emily and her mother, Sarah, sat across from each other in the small garden behind the house. Between them lay a wooden table scattered with teacups, a half-eaten lemon cake, and the quiet tension of years waiting to be spoken. Sarah reached for her teacup, then set it down without drinking. "Emily," she began, her voice rough with unspoken regret, "I know I wasn't the mother you needed. I wasn't the one who held you when you cried or cheered when you succeeded. I was hard, distant. I thought it made me strong." Emily watched the woman who had once been so unreachable, so full of judgment and silence. "I know you loved us in your way," Emily said gently. "But it hurt. It hurt a lot." Sarah nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I was scared. I didn't know how to love you the way Anna did. She was softer, braver. I was afraid of breaking." A long pause. Emily took a breath. "I forgive you," she said quietly. Sarah's eyes widened, disbelief flickering before relief washed over her face. "You don't know how long I've waited to hear that." Emily smiled softly. "Neither have I. For the first time in years." The weight between them began to lift, replaced by the fragile, hopeful promise of healing. Chapter 18. Together We Rise. The auditorium buzzed with excitement, a kaleidoscope of colorful banners, shy smiles, and proud parents clutching programs. Benji stood backstage, fidgeting with his shirt collar, his small fingers trembling with nerves. Emily crouched beside him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You're ready. Just play your heart." Benji nodded, inhaled deeply, and walked onto the stage, spotlight washing over him like a gentle embrace. As he began to play, the room fell silent, save for the soft notes from the piano. The melody was imperfect but sincere, each key struck with care and growing confidence. Emily's eyes filled with tears, not for the flawless music but for the journey that had led here. For the child who once clung to her in fear, now shining bravely. Daniel joined her in the front row, their hands finding each other's, fingers entwining in quiet solidarity. When the last note faded, the applause thundered, filling the space with warmth and joy. Benji's grin was radiant as he bowed. Backstage, Emily hugged him tightly. "You did it, my brave boy." He looked up, eyes shining. "We did it. All of us." And in that moment, the family was whole, no longer fractured by loss, but strengthened by love and resilience. Chapter 19. The Light That Never Fades. The warm June sun spilled across the front lawn as friends and family gathered to celebrate Benji's middle school graduation. Colorful balloons danced in the breeze. Laughter floated like music, and the scent of freshly cut grass mingled with homemade treats. Emily stood beside Daniel, her heart swelling with pride as she watched Benji walk across the stage. His shoulders were straight, his smile bright, a young man stepping confidently into his future. The journey here had not been easy. There had been nights filled with tears, moments of doubt, and a weight of loss that still lingered quietly in the corners of their lives. But today, all of that was transformed into light. After the ceremony, as the sun dipped lower, Emily found herself alone with Benji under the spreading branches of an old oak tree. He handed her a small, wrapped box. "For you, Mom," he said shyly. She untied the ribbon and opened it to find a simple pendant, a tiny silver heart with a small, clear stone at its center. "It's for you," Benji said softly, "because you held the light for me when it was dark." Emily's eyes welled with tears. She pulled him into a hug, holding him close. "You've held the light for me, too," she whispered. Together, they looked up at the sky as stars began to twinkle, knowing that the light they carried, the love, the healing, the hope would never fade.